Hi, my name is Mamie Kruger with Your Sleeping Baby, and I teach tired parents how to create independent sleepers so that everyone in their house can be at their absolute best. I've worked with over 1,000 families for over 12 years, and I believe that sleep is not optional if you want to have a happy, healthy family. Let's talk about the do's and the don'ts of pacifier use and how to use a pacifier while you're creating an independent sleeper. So you can use a passy, but it's so important that you know when to use it and when not to use it. So here are some things that you can definitely use a pacifier for. So when your baby is very young and breastfeeding or bottle feeding is established and your baby is putting on weight and all feeding is going well, then we can start using a pacifier. And we want to use a pacifier because babies have non-nutritive sucking needs. So if your baby doesn't have any other way to satisfy those non-nutritive sucking needs, guess what? You get to be the human pacifier. And while that might sound okay, what happens is that it becomes exhausting to a mom who is nursing her baby. And every time her baby wants to suck, she has to nurse. This really becomes unsustainable. And so having a pacifier as a tool, once you've fed your baby and you've done a full feed, if your baby still wants to suck, using a pacifier is a great way to satisfy that sucking need. Another time to use a pacifier is when your baby is just fussy. This is a great time to use the passy, and it's a really great tool to have in your toolbox. If your baby is fussy, especially in the evening when young babies tend to be fussiest, getting that baby swaddled up and giving them a passy can be so helpful. So fussy, use a passy. The other times that you can use a pacifier is to stretch a nap. So let's say you've put your baby down for their nap and 45 minutes later, they're awake. But their next feeding time is not until 2.5 or 3 hours later. This is a great time to use a pacifier because number one, it can ideally help them to get back to sleep. Number two, at the very least, it's going to keep them calm, hopefully, while they're in their crib or their bassinet. So using the passy to stretch a nap is a perfect time to use the pacifier. And the same thing with night sleep. This is a really great tool to give you the information that you need when determining if your baby is really hungry or not. So let's say you have a 6-week-old baby, you've put that baby down for bed, let's just say it's 8 o'clock, and at 11 o'clock, your baby wakes. Now, could they be hungry? Maybe, but probably not because they've just had a full day of eating every 3 hours, and that's kind of soon to be waking up. So going in with the pacifier is going to give you the information that you need to make a decision. Do I need to feed my baby? Is my baby really hungry? Or was my baby just going through a sleep cycle and they're gonna go back to sleep? So giving your baby the passy, waiting a little bit, you probably will have to stand there and hold it in their mouth because they're generally not great at keeping the passy in their mouth at that age. But if they go back to sleep, that tells you that your baby wasn't actually hungry. And if you didn't have the passy to give you that information, you would have more than likely gone ahead and just fed your baby because they woke up. So the passy is a really great tool to stretch and to help your baby to continue to move forward and help them just to reach their maximum potential for sleep as they get older and you're working on creating those longer stretches of sleep at night. Okay, so let's talk about when we don't use the pacifier. And really, there's just one time that I'm going to tell you that we want to try and not use a pacifier. And that is at sleep onset, meaning when your baby is going down for a nap or your baby is going down for bed or during the night after a feed, you don't want to have to give a passy. Does this mean you're never going to give a passy at sleep onset? Of course not. But what it does mean is that in the very beginning, if your baby is swaddled, they're fed, all their needs are met, you want to just work on not having to use that passy when they're going to sleep. Because if they get used to this and you're doing it almost every time or every time that baby is being put down to sleep, pretty soon your baby is going to feel like they have to suck to go to sleep. And that's what we want to avoid. Using the pacifier sometimes, like for the cat nap as an example, that's a great time to use a passy because that's a harder time of day for your baby and maybe may very well need the pacifier to go to sleep. But morning naps, early afternoon naps, those are great times to work on independent sleep. And if you feel like you always have to give a pacifier, you're not letting your baby settle themselves. You're not letting your baby just go to sleep naturally on their own. They're going to become dependent on that pacifier very, very quickly. And then you're going to be calling me for help because they're going to be waking up during the night needing the passy, and you're going to have to go in and replace a pacifier. And that's not fun. So I hope that this gave you some good tips on when to use the pacifier and when not to use the pacifier. And if you have any questions about how to wean your baby off of a pacifier, you can send me a message, send me an email, and I'm happy to help.